Hello and welcome to Tech Deals. This is the second AMD Raven Ridge APU with VEGA 8 graphics will it play video that I have done. The first was Overwatch, and there'll be a link down in the video description below of all the will it play videos, and then eventually when I do my full review on these CPUs, that'll be down there as well. Short version for $99, you get the deal of the year. 4 cores, 4 threads, up to 3.7 gigahertz, integrated graphics that is roughly equivalent to an $80 to a $100 graphics card, basically making the CPU free if you were going to buy this level. And it includes a decent Wraith Stealth cooler. This is a deal. Now, I just got these. I just recorded these the night of launch day. Unfortunately, I did not get these in advance, so I don't have a full review ready on launch day, but I will have one later in this week once I've spent some real time. I've now installed these CPUs into 2 different motherboards. I'm recording various benchmarks. I really need to spend several days with them before I do a full review, but for now, I'm giving you some will it play videos so you can see just what this thing is capable of. If I sound excited, it's because I legitimately am. For the most part, this basically obsoletes the GT 1030 and the RX 550 graphics card, at least for new builds. Now, those cards are still useful and still valid for older builds. If you have an i5 2400, 3450, even if you have like an AMD FX 4300, 6300, etc. Those cards are still fine and will provide similar, not exactly the same, a little bit more, a little bit less depending upon what you're doing, but similar performance to this and the VEGA 11 that's in the Ryzen 5 2400G. Now, these integrated graphics chips aren't perfect, and I will talk about that in detail in the review, but the value proposition is incredible. Any issues or concerns that I have with these are completely washed away, or at least 95% washed away, when you start discussing the value for the money they represent. Before I do the main review, let me just mention a couple of those things since I'm publishing both of these videos on the same day, this and the Overwatch video. The first thing is, if you have an older motherboard that's BIOS has not been updated, these CPUs will not work. I tried it. I took a fresh out-of-the-box board that I had that had an older BIOS on it, put the CPU in, didn't work, wouldn't boot up at all. You can do a BIOS flashback using a USB stick on some boards, but not all boards support that. The only way I got it to work on this board was I actually had to put a Ryzen 5 1400 on, boot up to the BIOS, then update the BIOS, then I could put the CPU on. So if you're buying a new motherboard off of Amazon or Newegg or off the retail shelf at a store, keep in mind it might be fairly recent and it will support these, or it might be new old stock 6 months old and it's not going to if you don't have a Ryzen CPU. Now, my understanding is that AMD started providing the information for these CPUs in November of 2017 to the motherboard makers, and so if your motherboard was made, say, in December, January, or February, then actually it probably will support it. But there's usually no indicator on the box to tell you whether or not you're getting that. And of course, if you order online, you can't even see the box, you're just seeing a listing. In April of 2018, 400 series boards are coming when the main line gets refreshed with the non-APU versions, and of course those will of course all support this out of the box. The only other niggling concern I have at the moment is series of lags and stutters that occur very, very rarely. Now, it is not as smooth as dedicated graphics are, but again, it's a heck of a value. There have been a few places in my recordings where there's been some stutters due to my capture card. Now, I am doing the voiceover of these like 2 hours after I actually played, so I remember where the stutters were in the game and where they weren't. When you watch the real-time frame rate in the upper left-hand corner of the screen, the stutter does show up when it's the fault of the integrated graphics rather than the capture card. That doesn't move when it's the capture card, and I'll call that out when it happens. Why does it happen? That's a good question. I've got DDR4 3200 megahertz RAM in here. I've got this installed on a new motherboard. It is an X370 MSI X-Power Titanium. Yes, that board is ridiculous overkill for the CPU, but I also had it on an Asus B350M Micro ATX budget board. And the reason I moved it over here was to see whether or not that setup and that install of Windows was any source of problems. That particular machine has had several Ryzen chips on it, and the install of Windows on that machine is several months old. This machine got a fresh install of Windows last night. All the hardware was brand new, Samsung 860 EVO SSD, top of the line, everything. It even has the G-Skill Flare X low latency CL rating 14 DDR4 3200. I gave this thing every benefit of the doubt that I possibly could because I didn't want to publish anything until I verified whether those lag spikes were in fact my platform or the fault of the CPU. Of course, if you're watching this 3 months from now, you might be going, what in the world are you talking about? Well, I published this the day after the CPU launched. I'm sort of giving my thoughts where I'm at so far. I mean, I could describe to you in real time what the numbers on the screen are, but I read the numbers so often in these videos, I figured, hey, I'll do something different and talk about my experiences. In any case, I wanted to be sure. And so let me tell you, the lag spikes in World of Warships and the lag spikes in Overwatch were in the same place in the games on both platforms, the extreme budget option and this super premium option. Now, nobody should build this particular option. I've got $750 of hardware surrounding a $99 CPU, which is silly. But I wanted to find out whether or not those issues were that specific setup or whether they were to the CPU. In Overwatch, for example, when you warp back after you die to the base, there's a lag spike in there where the frame rate drops down into the teens just for a fraction of a second, but it did affect the 1% lows. And the 0.1% lows than anything else. In this game, it does the same thing, but it does it when there's large explosions or when enemy ships are phasing in and out. Now, I'm playing an operation here, not PvP. I'm doing PvE. The truth is, I'll bet this actually would probably be very, very smooth in PvP because once the battle starts, no ships appear or vanish. Whereas in the operations they do, the game spawns new enemies, and there were some lag spikes when that happened. But it's just for a second. It's not in any way an issue in terms of the playability of the game. So here's the short answer. Would I play World of Warships on this? Yes, I would. Would it be my first choice? No, it would not. A dedicated graphics card is generally better. But boy, it sure costs more. Did I mention this was $99 for a quad-core CPU at 3.7 gigahertz with a cooler and graphics equivalent to a GT 1030? That's a deal. In any case, as I said, there will be a lot more Will It Play videos on this platform. Now, that was a capture error right there, for those of you curious. There was no lag spike in the gameplay. That was all my capture card. I need to replace that thing. That's driving me nuts. And some people would say that's a short drive to begin with. But in any case, yes, if I was on a tight budget, if I had to buy a system or build a system in the spring of 2018 with the current state of the graphics card market, yeah, this is very, very good. Now, I will be doing update videos with these with the Ryzen 5 2400G, but I would like to point out that in this game, at least, it wouldn't make any difference. Take a look at our CPU usage. Games like this really only use 2 cores, sometimes 3 anyway. Overwatch will use 4, and Overwatch might actually benefit from the Ryzen 5 2400G, partly because of the faster graphics chip. It does have VEGA 11, so it does have more actual shaders, and then also from the fact that it has 8 threads. It's also 200 megahertz faster out of the box, turboing up to 3.9 rather than 3.7. And here are the results. We had an average of 53 frames per second, 30 frames per second, 1% low, 12 frames per second, 0.1% low. Now, while those numbers on the low end look very bad, the truth is this was actually very, very playable the vast majority of the time. You could turn the detail down, but it doesn't make a big difference. I think the fact that it is an iGPU as opposed to a dedicated GPU is what makes the difference. I did try playing this on low detail, and while the numbers improved, not by enough to justify the loss in quality. There were still some lag spikes. When the enemies phased in, there were still some delays there that put the lows down at a lower level than I'd like to see. But that's why I do these Will It Plays, because you can see the gameplay and see how well it does, rather than just looking at a benchmark chart and having to guess how well it does. Like this video if you like it, share it with your friends if you loved it. Remember to subscribe to my channel with the big huge red button directly below. Post your comments below the video and look at the video description for more details and links to everything. Links to the new APUs, links to the equivalent graphics cards, the GT 1030 and the RX 550 will be down there, and my refer a friend link for World of Warships. If you're on the North American server, you can get 2 free premium cash shop ships for using that link when you sign up. Thanks so much for watching. I will see you in the next video.